Each offseason, every team makes some of the most impactful choices that go on to affect not only the upcoming season, but the trajectory of the next few years. Unfortunately, not all those decisions are good ones.
I'm 27 now. I feel like I'm a lot better player there. I've grown physically, I've grown mentally.
The bulk of the heavy lifting is complete for all 32 NFL front offices. While we await the start of the regular season, it's a good time to critique some of these moves as we look at every team's biggest mistake of the 2021 offseason. And a big shout out to Alien Gaming for suggesting this video. Arizona Cardinals, overpaying J.J. Watt. Watt signed a 2-year, $28 million deal with the Cardinals. Now, that is a lot of money for an injury-prone player who's clearly past his prime, especially when you consider how deep the pass rusher market was this year. Watt had just 5 sacks in 2020. The Cardinals should have used that money to address their secondary, or they could have used it on a younger, better pass rusher. Matt Judon, Jadeveon Clowney, and Carl Lawson would have been much better options. Atlanta Falcons, selling low on Julio Jones. Atlanta traded the future Hall of Famer and a 2023 sixth-rounder to the Tennessee Titans in exchange for 2022 second-round and 2023 fourth-round picks. We understand that the Falcons need to move on from Julio, but why not wait till his value is a little higher? He's still one of the top wideouts in the game. You'd have to think that had the Falcons held on to him and allowed him to prove he still got it during the first few weeks of the season, they likely could have gotten at least a first-rounder for Jones at the trade deadline. Baltimore Ravens, missing out on Julio Jones. Speaking of Julio, the Ravens just felt like a perfect fit for him, and surely GM Eric DeCosta could have topped the Titans' offer for him. The Ravens did upgrade at receiver by signing Sammy Watkins before drafting Rashad Bateman, but Jones could have been the final piece needed to unlock the Ravens' aerial attack. Buffalo Bills, not signing J.J. Watt. The Bills' defense experienced unexpected regression in 2020, even though they went on to the AFC Championship game. This is a team that's in win-now mode, which is why they should have pushed harder to land J.J. Watt. Watt's veteran presence and leadership could have made him the perfect fit for Sean McDermott and company. They're in the perfect position to outbid the Cardinals for him, too. Carolina Panthers, drafting J.C. Horn over Patrick Surtain II. Patrick Surtain was widely viewed as the best cornerback prospect in the draft, but the Panthers passed on him and instead went with J.C. Horn out of South Carolina. Surtain has a much higher ceiling, and he's more NFL ready. Carolina would have been better off taking the safer pick, especially when you consider the amount of stud pass catchers they have to deal with in the NFC South. Chicago Bears, signing Andy Dalton for $10 million. We don't hate the idea of signing a suitable veteran for 1 year, but why did the Bears bother to give Andy Dalton $10 million? Was there really that big of a market for him? The Bears at least corrected this mistake by trading up for Justin Fields. Cincinnati Bengals, overpaying Trey Hendrickson. Coming off a breakout season with the New Orleans Saints, Hendrickson signed a 6-year, $60 million contract with the Bengals. Now, that's a lot of money for a guy who only had 6.5 career sacks before the 2020 season. Wouldn't it have made more sense for them to invest that money on the offensive line in order to protect Joe Burrow? Cleveland Browns, not trading Odell Beckham Jr. Beckham suffered a torn ACL in Week 7 of last season, and strangely enough, Cleveland's offense actually improved without the Pro Bowl wideout. The Browns are a run-first offense, and Baker Mayfield has enough to work with in the passing game. With a major cap crunch looming, the Browns should have traded OBJ while his value was high. He's clearly not the best fit in this offense, and if he doesn't bounce back in 2021, his trade value will likely take an even greater hit. Dallas Cowboys, drafting Kelvin Joseph. The Cowboys, all in all, had a pretty solid offseason, but we still continue to question the Kelvin Joseph selection at number 44 overall. There were much better prospects on the board, like ball-hawking cornerback Asante Samuel Jr. Dallas also could have used Azeez Ojulari or Nick Bolton, 2 prospects that were widely expected to go in round 1. Yes, they had to address the defense, but in that case, why not go with the best defensive player available? Denver Broncos, passing on Justin Fields and Mac Jones. The Broncos found a gem in Patrick Surtain II in the number 9 spot. But with Ronald Darby, Kyle Fuller, and 2020 breakout star Bryce Callahan already on the roster, cornerback was far from this team's biggest need. The Broncos had the chance to take a top quarterback prospect in Justin Fields or Mac Jones. Instead, they're going with the tandem of Drew Lock and Teddy Bridgewater. It just feels like Denver missed out on a great opportunity to secure a long-term solution at quarterback. Detroit Lions losing Kenny Galladay. The Lions decided against using the franchise tag on star wideout Kenny Galladay. The backup option? Let him walk in free agency and gain absolutely nothing. And to make matters worse, the Lions did next to nothing to upgrade their receiving unit. How's newcomer Jared Goff expected to shine without a true playmaking receiver? TJ Hawkinson can't do it all on his own. Green Bay Packers handling of the Aaron Rodgers situation. The Packers can talk about how they want to keep Aaron Rodgers all they want, but what exactly have they done to convince him to stay? They didn't do much to upgrade the roster around him, and Mark Murphy calling him a complicated fella isn't going to help matters. Green Bay has done nothing useful to repair the situation. The longer this drags out, the worse it gets for all parties involved. Houston Texans not trading Deshaun Watson. When Deshaun Watson's trade request went public in January, the Texans should have moved quickly to grant his wish. But they dragged it out. And now there's a good chance he doesn't even play at all in 2021 because of ongoing lawsuits. Houston should have held a bidding war for him before free agency opened. Lots of teams would have mortgaged the farm for his services at that time. Now they're stuck with an expensive QB who has a very uncertain future. Indianapolis Colts drafting Daiyo Odenbo. The Colts went off the board when they took the Vanderbilt defensive end with the number 54 selection. This is a very risky pick because Odenbo suffered a torn Achilles back in January. The Colts really reached here, and you obviously don't know how Odenbo will bounce back from the injury. Why not make a safer pick so early in the draft? Jacksonville Jaguars overpaying Shaquille Griffin. Giving Shaquille Griffin a 3-year, $40 million deal comes with plenty of questions. For one, what made them think he's worth it? Griffin was merely average in 2020, recording a PFF grade of 64.1. And according to Pro Football Reference, Griffin allowed a 62.1 completion percentage when targeted in 2020. A 1-year, low-risk move would have worked better for the Jags. This is simply way too much money for a non-Pro Bowl corner. Kansas City Chiefs not extending Orlando Brown Jr. After a miserable Super Bowl performance, the Chiefs went to work in upgrading their O-line. The biggest move was acquiring Pro Bowl tackle Orlando Brown Jr. in a trade with Baltimore. The only complaint? The cap-strapped Chiefs have now waited too long to extend him. If Brown plays well in 2021, his price tag will only skyrocket. Having given up all that draft capital, the Chiefs don't carry the leverage in negotiations. He does. And the longer an extension waits, the more likely they'll have to pay him. Las Vegas Raiders drafting Alex Leatherwood. For the third straight year, the Raiders stunned the football world by reaching big time in round 1. This year, it was Alabama offensive tackle Alex Leatherwood at number 17 overall. Of course, if the Raiders didn't trade away 3 stud linemen in Gabe Jackson, Rodney Hudson, and Trent Brown, there's no need to draft Leatherwood in the first place. We really have no idea what the plan is in Vegas. Los Angeles Chargers not bringing back Melvin Ingram. Ingram has been one of the NFL's most productive pass rushers dating back to 2015. So why not try to keep him around in an effort to provide some stability on defense for new head coach Brandon Staley? If you want to beat Mahomes and the Chiefs in the AFC West, you have to be able to get to the quarterback. That won't be easy for the Chargers now that they have no one left to complement Joey Bosa. Los Angeles Rams re-signing Leonard Floyd for $64 million. On the one hand, giving Floyd a 4-year, $64 million deal makes sense since he's coming off a career-high 10.5 sacks. But the cap-strapped Rams could have easily found a cheaper replacement. After all, it's not like Floyd is the first guy to have a career year while lining up alongside Aaron Donald. The Rams probably should have found a more affordable option on a short-term deal to help save cap space. Miami Dolphins trading for Isaiah Wilson. 1 year after he was drafted 29th overall by the Titans, Wilson got traded to Miami. The two teams also swapped 7th-round picks. The Titans originally gave up on Wilson so quickly because of his off-the-field issues. And, well, the same thing has happened with Miami. Wilson was cut 3 days after the team had traded for him. Minnesota Vikings not re-signing Anthony Harris. The Vikings made several upgrades on defense following a dismal showing in 2020, but we remain curious as to why they didn't bring back reliable veteran safety Anthony Harris, who signed a cheap one-year $4 million deal with the Philadelphia Eagles. Keeping the Harrison Smith-Anthony Harris safety duo intact would have gone a long way towards helping the defense regain its stingy form. New England Patriots overpaying Nelson Agholor. Handing Nelson Agholor a 2-year deal worth $26 million was rather curious. His production with the Raiders was excellent, but the previous 5 years with Philly were mired with inconsistency. Belichick probably should have forked over more money in turn for someone like Juju Smith-Schuster, Kenny Galladay, or Corey Davis. New Orleans Saints drafting Peyton Turner. The Saints took Houston defensive end Peyton Turner with the number 28 selection. Though we like his potential, this just felt like a wasted opportunity where New Orleans could have traded down to get their guy. They went way off the board here. New York Giants giving Adoree Jackson $39 million. With Logan Ryan, James Bradbury, and Jabril Peppers leading the fold, the Giants already have enough talent in the secondary. So we don't get the logic behind the 3-year, $39 million deal they gave Adoree Jackson, who was released by the Titans. Jackson has been limited to 14 games over the last 2 years, and his production wasn't great in those contests he did play in. They should have just used that money to fix their O-line rather than try to strengthen a strength. New York Jets signing Tyler Kroft. Okay, we're kind of nitpicking here because the Jets actually had a ridiculously good offseason, at least on paper. That said, signing Tyler Kroft to a 1-year pact worth $2 million just kind of felt meh. He's only totaled 85 catches for 851 yards and 12 touchdowns over 6 NFL seasons. Not sure if the Jets should really expect much production from this signing. Philadelphia Eagles not firing Howie Roseman. The Eagles decided to hit the reset button by firing Doug Peterson and by trading Carson Wentz. If you're gonna rebuild though, why give Howie Roseman the keys to the car? This guy handed out several brutal contracts, and he struck out big time over the last few drafts. It feels like the Eagles are just keeping Roseman out of loyalty. They're only 4 years removed from a Super Bowl after all. Pittsburgh Steelers moving on from Alejandro Villanueva. The Steelers lost Marquise Pouncey to retirement, and they surprisingly cut David DeCastro. But arguably, their worst loss was 2-time Pro Bowl offensive tackle Alejandro Villanueva, who signed with the rival Baltimore Ravens. Why didn't the Steelers just keep Villanueva? Are they trying to get Roethlisberger killed back there? San Francisco 49ers overpaying Kyle Juszczyk. Admittedly, we're nitpicking because San Fran actually had an incredible offseason, all things considered. But the one questionable move the Niners did make was handing the veteran fullback a 5-year extension worth $27 million. That's quite a bit for a fullback, wouldn't you say? He's a nice weapon in Kyle Shanahan's offense, but for a guy who plays well below 50% of the offensive snaps, this feels like a giant overpay. Seattle Seahawks signing Gerald Everett. The Seahawks, with limited cap room, should have focused entirely on upgrading the defense. Rather, they handed veteran tight end Gerald Everett a 1-year pact worth $6 million. That's a lot of money to allocate towards a guy with 8 touchdowns in 4 seasons. A player who hasn't topped 417 yards in a season. Seattle could have used that precious money to fix their pass rush or secondary. Tampa Bay Buccaneers re-signing Antonio Brown. Again, we're nitpicking here. The defending champions somehow managed to bring back all of their starters this offseason. But are we sure Antonio Brown is worth bringing back? He really wasn't much of a game changer last season. And who knows if he'll be able to keep it clean on and off the field throughout a full season in Tampa. It just feels like maybe, just maybe, the Bucs didn't need AB to run it back. Tennessee Titans overpaying Bud Dupree. Handing a 5-year, $82.5 million contract to Dupree caused a lot of eyebrow raising. His high sack totals in Pittsburgh can probably be attributed to the fact that TJ Watt and Cameron Hayward were commanding most of the attention from opposing offenses. Rather than give Dupree such a lucrative deal, Tennessee should have pushed harder on a short-term pact for someone like JJ Watt, Yannick Ngakoue, or Carl Lawson. Washington football team settling on Ryan Fitzpatrick. Washington won the NFC East despite using 3 different quarterbacks in the regular season.
Clearly, this team was a QB upgrade away from becoming true Super Bowl contenders. But Ryan Fitzpatrick, I mean, come on now. We've seen this story one too many times. This is not much of an upgrade at all compared to what Ron Rivera's team had to work with last season. Washington's front office had one job this offseason and one job only: get a quarterback. And based on our assessment, they failed miserably. What do you think was your favorite team's biggest mistake of the 2021 NFL offseason? Join us in the comment section below. If you liked this video and learned a thing or two, clicking the like button helps out a ton, and hey, we appreciate it. If this is your first time coming around to TPS though, subscribing is a great idea because we put out videos like this every single day. But as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.